She placed something heavy and golden around Solo's neck. Then Chewbacca's having to strain to do so, and finally around Luke's. He did get a medal, people. He did. It's right here, page 255. Okay, see, right there, right there. I get it. They didn't do it in the movie, but to be fair, they might not have wanted to try to figure out how to get, Carrie Fisher to reach up to do that. It might have just been, that would be too much of a hassle. And also, he's not human. So it can just be easier that the two people that are more familiar to us because they are the same species and who speak English as well, that helps too. Yeah, it kind of makes some sense that there would be a focus on Han and Luke in the movie, but he does get the medal. It says so. We didn't need to read the books. And I think it is fair to be like, well, no, that you can say, a mixing of the movie and the book is truly the canon there. So yeah. Anyway, he did. All right. It's a very short chapter. 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's done. It is kind of funny, and we do have a lot that basically lines exactly with the movie. One thing a little funny is it describes how basically everybody's backslapping and all that, and it's a little bit of a competition. You like who can do it hard, and Chewie's just winning by default, and it actually kind of worries him when he knocks down Luke, nearly flattened Luke in his eagerness to greet him. You do get a little bit of the redemption with Han. Just the comment that he has is a little bit longer than what's in the movie. Well, I couldn't very well let a flying farm boy go up against that station all by himself. Besides, I was beginning to realize that what could happen, and I felt terrible about it. Luke, leaving you to maybe take all the credit and get all the reward. He's obviously going to throw that in, but it is... He has that redemptive arc there, that he went from being pure survivor, which is a very selfish motive, to caring about Luke, and potentially also the rebellion as a whole and the galaxy as a whole as well, because that technically is the stakes for the Death Star. That technically is the stakes for it being out there, so doing something to help does make sense. But obviously, still spin it around to being about him. Okay. They do have one thing here that I don't like this. I really don't like this. It describes that despite all that going on, Luke feels the urge to start looking up into the top of this temple thing on Yavin. And he believes he hears a sigh, like an old man relaxing his muscles. It's like, loop the Death Star here. Hang on. I have a window partially covering. I want to make sure it's in the camp. Loop the Death Star over here. He's now over here. Why did it take that long for Kenobi to sigh in relief? It's not like he needed to wait. He could have done it right away. Like it could have been in the previous chapter, even. And there's also, I don't like the idea that Force Ghost Kenobi can do things unintentionally. Because why would he? It's like, hang on, guys. It's like talking to the other Force Ghosts, like, hang on, guys. I need to sigh and make sure my protege here hears that. Okay, just I need to do this with intent now. Just give me. Is it? What? It's like, why would he do? It's yeah. In the movie, it's still in the X-wing. May the Force be the Force will be with you always. I think is the quote. It's like that is far superior because it's immediate, and it actually is with meaning, and it is. Prior to this, well, and also this is an example of it with just aside, Luke doesn't understand necessarily that he is, in fact, hearing Kenobi talk to him. Right? He doesn't yet understand that Kenobi isn't just dead. In the movie, by doing that, and the Force will be with you always, that kind of does confirm for Luke he is somehow still alive, which then, when you see in Empire Strikes Back, he visualizes himself, he manifests so that Luke can see him. It makes so much more sense that isn't just a hallucination, that he is like, no. I knew for years. I think there are a few years that separate um, A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, but it still is like he could have done that. You could do that. That would make more sense. So that actually is going to leave then when I get to Empire, which I think I'm going to take a little bit of a break on. I'm not sure how long. I've been not writing as much as I want to be, so I do need to pause for a bit. But I do wonder how they will address that then. The idea that are these hallucinations or are these actually visions? But then it's also, it's years later. So why would Kenobi be putting off doing that? Yeah, timeline stuff like that does get weird. And it is just, for me, because I don't quite think in terms of like, okay, this happened on this day, this happened on this day, this happened on this week, this happened. I don't quite do that. But I still try to make sure that things consistently flow. I think also for me, a lot of it is like block by block by block. So it's not like it happened on this day. It's more of a, okay, this happened here, this happened here, this happened here. And the things within the blocks are, coherent. And then it's, you're connecting from one to the other consistently. I think that's more so how I do it. Hey, it's one area I know I need to improve at. So, and there was something else with that occurred to me. Oh, yeah, just one funny story that I will get to at some point. Get to sharing at some point. Just how my how a story once told me, hey, you need to write some more chapters to explain what happened this day, and I did. And I like the chapters. Anyway, there was one more point I want to make, and then we'll be done. Well, I may do some sort of wrap up for just a story, for just this one story in the larger book. Yeah, so let me actually try to pull it up. Sorry, I was reading the word in, so I was trying to figure out exactly where it was. All right. For the first time, yes. No, that's not it. A little bit above it. Where is it? It's little. I know I just read it, but it still can be hard to spot it specifically. Okay. Hundreds of rebel troops, it's in the middle of a paragraph, I thought it was close to the end. Hundreds of rebel troops and technicians stood assembled on the old stone floor, gathered together for one last time before dispersing to new posts and distant homes. They should have been dispersed to begin with. And it's like, okay, this is one of those more technical things that I know I try to get right in my stories, and I do try to think out. The rebellion, especially because I kind of mentioned this with Biggs, when I was talking about Biggs, that arguably there should be many small rebellious cells that maybe connect together, but for the most part they are spread out, right, and are autonomous. It's not quite the word I want, but they're self-contained from each other. So, like, Biggs would never necessarily meet General Dodonna, who is the main leader there, right? He would never normally meet him, but it would make sense to say, okay, and this would have happened already because Leia was already on this mission. They were aware of the Death Star being built, so it's like, okay, we need to do something, and they start calling together nearby rebel groups. So it's like, yes, we are aware of you, come on, we need your help. That would make sense, but it would also mean then that this headquarters is intrinsically temporary, and so the whole going there to destroy it with the Death Star, it would break morale. Well, it would hurt morale, may not break it, but it's not actually going to stop the rebellion, because you should have those cells in other places, and leadership even in other places, that can call them together when, again, you see a large threat. But that normally they're just a whole bunch of disconnected units that can do what they can in their areas without needing higher coordination. But for something big like the Death Star, you then pull them all together. You then pull a number of them together. I mean, that makes the most sense logistically. That's not the right word. Logistically, there we go. Speech impediment sometimes makes me try to adjust it. Anyway, that would make the most sense logistically for managing it. But that's not really how it seems it's used here. That the alliance is centralized such that you can take out one thing and it all falls apart. It's like, that's not how you would do it. That's really not how you could do it here either, because it would be so incredibly dangerous. Because one slip up, you're dead. Because it is also, like I was pointing out in the other one, if Biggs can find them in a matter of days, right? He's just run away from the Imperial Navy. He's gone AWOL. And apparently the Imperial Navy isn't trying to find him, hasn't been following him. Because if they did, they'd find the rep. I mean, it is so stupid. In fact, maybe that is how, if I were writing this, how I would do it. That he did find, that when he meets up with Luke, it's hey, Luke, it's great to see you. Oh, wow, you made it here? Well, sort of. And then explain that I found a small group of rebels, and when I was there, we got the call that, hey, every pilot needed to come. I had no idea. It's like, you could do it that way, where it's like he is also new there. He's just coming from his cell, and he didn't know that any of it was this big. He just found a small cell that got called to go and act, to go to Yavin. That would make so much more sense then, but it would also still have no one knows who the hell he is. Blue Leader wouldn't be impressed by him saying, nah, he's the best bush pilot in the Outer Rim. It's like, who the hell are you? That would still be happening, but at least you could, it would make more sense for how it all tie together. One other thing just occurred to me. Got all these people going back. I mean, I'm true, you got a whole bunch of people on the Death Star that are dead and are not going home. But technically, if the Empire is maintaining like lists of people on planets, like even just a phone book, if suddenly there's a bunch of people that don't come back, you might be like, I think we need to investigate their families and their associates. I'm sorry, but it's kind of I don't remember the name given for Blue Leader, who's Red Leader in the movie. It's like, he died. Or here, let's go with Porkins. Porkins is dead. So it might be like, this guy's gone. He just happened to disappear around this time. He's a known pilot. So, you're Mrs. Porkins, right? Can you account for his whereabouts? You're his neighbor. Can you tell us some things about him? Can you tell us about yourself? It's like this... Sorry, but it is just one of those. It is kind of funny to start pulling on threads there. There is something else that actually would be really interesting. Is if there's any of the spin the Empire would have to do about the Death Star's destruction. Because it would have to be some. Because they just destroyed a planet and announced it, and then like a day later, it's suddenly gone. Would the rebels be saying that they did it? Or would the Empire just like disavow that the Death Star even existed? I mean, in theory, they could even try to spin it that it was the rebels that did it. Or that Tarkin was rebel. I mean, it is kind of interesting. But I doubt that that'll happen because, as I said, Empire Strikes Back is set years later, so that would have already occurred. It would have to be just references to the past. But I will say this. That is something that exactly could go in a novel that wouldn't be in a movie because it doesn't fill in. It doesn't fill out the movie appropriately. Not in a way that matters, but it's for the movie. It doesn't matter for the movie. But yeah, that could be interesting. But it's also Empire Strikes Back is only like... Hang on, I actually do have it in my... There it is. My sheet here. Oh no, 14 chapters. Return of the Jedi is the short one at 9. So I guess there might be time, but it's also... Empire has a lot more going on with it, so it's not surprising that it is 14 chapters long. But still, as 14 is short to me. It's actually kind of disturbing how much I write for some stories. Anyway, so yeah, I will be getting to Empire Strikes Back. I'm not sure when, because as I said, I want to be writing some more. I'll probably watch the movie tomorrow. But what did I think of it overall? I did enjoy it. It's definitely different, in part because the whole, I know the movies so well, and they are different. I still like the Kenobi in there better. I think some of the stuff around, like the Force Ghost stuff, I can't ignore that. But I do think that the Kenobi there is better. I think the presentation of Han is better. I am colored by the fact that I am biased by... I've seen the movie since I was a kid, okay? Very young. So that impression is very strong with me. But I wouldn't say I've ever felt as strongly that Han is really about his own survival. he's a smuggler. He's somewhat mercenary. It's like that, yeah, but not as strongly that, no, it's all about his survival. That is all he cares about. So it's only things that satisfy his desire to survive that will actually sway him to do anything. And also, I mean, well, no, he did leave Leia because, I mean, it's like he's attracted to her, but, he's still, it's like, nah, if it keeps me alive, goodbye. Luke still was not doing well, unless you want to try to count the hole in the previous chapter with him being somewhat reckless. He's not doing the instant decision thing. That line should be just deleted from the book. I was like, there legitimately is zero reason for that line. It is never paid off, and I don't feel it was ever set up either. It's just there. That sentence. Actually, no, half a sentence. No. That sentence was self-contained. If you just deleted that entire sentence, you would not negatively impact the book at all. You would positively impact it because it's dumb and it's inconsistent with the rest of the story. I'm sorry to people that wrote it and the people that edited it, but that line should not be there. It has no bearing on it. Because you either have him making instant decisions that are completely reasoned, or decisions that it doesn't matter. So yeah, just I did like Luke being more imaginative because he's restless. I think that is better portrayed here. Some of the emotionality of Luke also, which, to be fair, there are certain mechanical reasons why you couldn't have him trying to run into the homestead while it's burning. You couldn't have Mark Hamill do that because there are certain dangers there. It would be hard to film as well, especially for multiple takes. I understand that. But I do think that how it's handled in the book is better. I have greater freedom there, so as I said, Kenobi's a lot better, but you still have, I mean, it's also in the movie. Why does he seem to have a stronger reaction to Kenobi's death than his family? Yeah. The R2-3PO relationship is more interesting in the book, I feel. And you don't really have a true redemptive moment for 3PO in here. It is just like what it is in the movie. If you need any circuits or whatever. But I mean, that's not truly redemptive because 3PO was being an asshole to R2. I mean, let's be real. That's what his character is. So you don't see him ceasing to truly be that. Like considering R2 more an equal to him. They're friends. He's offering to help his friend. I don't count that as redemptive. There would be other things that you could do to achieve that. To have it be that way. Like, I'm just trying to think. 3PO is actually surprised at seeing R2 completely polished up and all that at the medal ceremony. So you would have needed to have another scene in there, I feel, to really do that. But yeah, I guess even something like, just the question of, because technically, who do they belong to now? Do they stay with Leia? Who, I mean, technically they were hers previously. Kenobi's dead, so obviously don't belong to him anymore. Do they stay with Luke? And they end up as, in Empire, they get split. R2 stays with Luke because stays with the X-Wing, and 3PO stays with the princess. But you could have had something like that there, like, where do you want to go? And 3PO, like, letting R2 answer that's like, no, I'm trusting his decision. In fact, that would be the best thing. Whatever R2 says. Because that would be humbling for him, because that's been his greatest character flaw. He's not humble. So, humbling him, saying R2 can decide. Okay, that would have been appropriate. And you could maybe have slid that in at the end, but it would almost be like an afterword or epilogue, so, which they didn't do. But, it's... Leia really doesn't have any character development, but she also doesn't need it. I mean, she's a very constant, consistent character with what you would expect. She starts off very strong, but later on, yeah, she is, and very strong, very intelligent. But later on, yeah, she is more feminine, she is weaker, she is nervous and such, but it's like, okay, the Death Star is coming to blow up the moon she's on, and she's biting her nails. that's just a thing. I mean, it's like, that doesn't tell us about the character beyond it's a nervous situation and she's nervous. So, I mean, a little bit, she's acting less senatorial, I think is how they even put it in this, when she runs up to hug Luke after he comes back and then hugs Han, and it's like, these are not inconsistent with the character we've seen before, because she doesn't have a need to be the strong rebel leader, the strong senator, the strong prince. She doesn't have a need for that anymore, so she isn't. So, yeah, I mean, she really doesn't develop in here, but as she doesn't need to in this one. Empire, she will need to. Does she need to in Return of the Jedi? She does, but it technically doesn't need to be within the confines of Return of the Jedi. I mean, I know she will, but she technically doesn't need character development in Return of the Jedi. It's after Return of the Jedi, because basically the war being done, that's where it would be more interesting to see. Kind of like in Lord of the Rings, Eowyn. How basically once the war is done for her, because she wants to be a warrior, but when talking with Faramir in the healing house, I'm just trying to remember, it was just from the conversation, wasn't also something she saw, how that through that conversation she relaxed some on trying to be a warrior. And relaxed some, she relaxed entirely. So it's like, you could have something like that for Leia, but that's post Return of the Jedi. Eowyn, technically the War of the Ring wasn't done yet. It was done for her, though. Because it's she wasn't going to be involved in the final battle there. It would only be if somehow Sauron survived the destruction of the ring, but the armies of man were eradicated, and so then she would have to worry about defending Gondor. That's the only instance, that situation, which doesn't make sense. Because Sauron, either the ring is destroyed or Sauron gets it. It's not being hidden again. That's not going to happen. If Sauron gets it, it doesn't matter. He's now conquering Middle-earth. So, I mean, no. It's not like she would survive for long kind of thing. It's, the war is still done. She lost. Whereas if it's destroyed, as what happens, then the war is done because she won. So, I mean, it's like, yeah, so either way, you could have that relaxing because the war is done. I do wonder if that will be in there. You know, let me... I just want to see, what is... Okay, so it ends basically how the movie does, with them celebrating with the Ewoks. Him seeing the... seeing Yoda, Ben, and was it his father here? So I don't really mind. We know how it ends. But that, and although based on how it was saying, I'm only skimming. It's still are they really there? They're really hazy. And so he feels a little sad when it seems they disappear. But then Leia comes over and like pulls them back to the main party. But it does also end on, the Empire is dead, long live the Alliance. Yeah, the Empire was dead, long live the Alliance. So you don't get that after war thing, which, I mean, it would have been interesting. I mean, would have been very interesting, especially because if it had been written out in there, it may have been harder for them to do the sequel trilogy, because they had to undo so much. I'm not touching those. I'm not touching them. I'm not. But I will be doing The Empire Strikes Back. It might just be, from my perspective, a few days away. That's all. All right. See you then.